Hello everyone, Harry Baldock here, editor at Total Telecom. We're here on day one of Subnet's EMEA 2022. I'm joined by Ed McCormack from Ciena. Ed, how's your day going today?
Good to see you. Yeah, quite a busy time actually. I think we're all very happy to be back into some face-to-face contact, and a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of positivity, and just great to be together. Yeah,
absolutely. You gave a really great presentation earlier this morning talking about kind of the industry and how it's changed in the past few decades, really. What do you think were kind of the main talking points from that?
Well, I think when you look at our industry, it's always viewed as quite specialist, and I think because we serve a limited customer base, it's rarely in the press unless there's a reason to discuss it. But I think if you look back over the last quarter century, for example, this is an industry which has always had quite a bit of funding available to it, and it's seen its business model evolve. Pretty much every 5 to 10 years there have been major changes. I would say if you go back to the turn of the century, prior to that, this industry had been funded by carriers, primarily funded. A lot of the research and development was done by carriers. Then you start to come into this century, and new technology evolved to make it somewhat more exciting, to make cables somewhat more expandable or upgradable. That was kind of adding a new dimension to the economics of the cable. And then I think we saw around the 2008-9 area a real game changer when third-party vendors started to add coherent technology to existing systems, thereby multiplying the capacity of those systems for a tiny fraction of the build price. So that started to evolve. Then we had also the entry of the content players who contributed hugely to the funding of the industry. And they then led the drive towards openness. And by openness, I mean open architecture, new ownership models. And I think that that happened from around 2014-15 onwards, and that continues today and makes it a much more exciting place. I mean, probably one way to describe it is we're heading towards a plug-and-play environment, and openness extends the cable from submarine right to a data center, even to the edge of the network. Very exciting.
You ended your presentation talking about optimism for the industry and kind of looking to the future, things still very much looking bright, certainly in terms of investment. What makes you so optimistic for the industry?
Well, we've always had to deal with challenges in the industry. I think we've been blessed by having good people. We've had many inspiring characters in this business. Now, when I look at that talent base, I look at what's been achieved by the wet plant builders, by the vendors, by the content players, and I can see that the network has become truly open. Now, what makes it so interesting is that we are on the cusp of enabling new services like 5G, IoT, augmented reality, and being able to extend that network right to the edge and getting the service providers or the carriers to ensure that the on-ramps to the edge are built to scale. And it's a very exciting time. I think we're going to see continued funding in the industry, but the funding sources will be different. The actual network that's built may be different. And we will become somewhat agnostic over land, over subsea.
And of course, it sounds like there's a whole wealth of opportunities there for players across the industry. In terms of those opportunities, what would you say are the largest, and what would you say are the challenges that the industry is currently facing?
Well, I think the largest opportunities, let's park that for a minute, because if we can solve the challenges, then we can look at the largest. And I think that if you walk around here, have a look, and you will find that it is a group of people, many who have been coming here for a long time, and the industry is quite centralized around major cities. What we need to do is make internet competitively available to the world. Now, there's at least a third of the world that doesn't have the best competitive access at the moment. And I give a lot of credit to the content players and to the Indian operators for really building to make internet competitively available over the next few years. So I think that if we can solve the challenge of resources, if we can refresh and bring new talent into the industry, I think the biggest opportunity is in these markets that are underserved. And these are huge markets, as I said, a third of the world.
And of course, one of the biggest challenges that the industry's faced and actually proven quite resilient to has been COVID-19. Do you think those changes that we've seen as a result of the pandemic are here to stay? Or what do you think about the trends moving forward in that regard?
Wow, COVID-19 is much talked about challenge, I suppose. And I think what we saw in COVID-19 is that this is where the individuals in the industry prove their worth, because it was a true crisis. And politicians have a glib phrase, let's not let a crisis go to waste. But actually in this industry we faced the crisis, and I think that the bandwidth that was made available in every part of the network in rapid time was quite breathtaking. So I think that COVID-19 became kind of not a huge event in terms of servicing the end user. COVID-19 achieved great things in terms of helping us to deploy services remotely. That was a huge success. Is it permanent? I think that it is permanent, because COVID-19 may have accelerated the demand for capacity a little bit, but it's a permanent step, and it's not going to in any way curtail the future growth. Now, what about COVID-19 in terms of the challenges it leaves behind? The reality is our industry has been out of the public eye for 2 or 3 years. This is 2 or 3 years when the world has changed the way we employ people. We've changed employment practices. We've changed the way we hire people. We've changed the way we approach graduates. This industry has suffered because we've not been at the coalface in terms of the people side of it. And this is where we have to recover. This is where I think we need the senior executives among the different participants, whether they're carriers, whether they're content players, whether they're financial investors, whether they're wholesalers. We need executive sponsorship for some real change in the way we attract people into the industry.
Last question for you, Ed. There was whispers that you may be retiring soon, so what's next for you, and will we see you here at Subnet's EMEA 2023?
Well, I think the challenge is that people retire in this industry, but the unique thing about this industry is this multicultural aspect, the global dimension of it, the friends you make whom you only see when you come to events. And I believe that retiring is sort of a fade away concept that happens as long as you're fit to attend things like this. So I hope I will see you again in the future.
Ed, it's been great to speak to you. Thank you very much for your time today.
Lovely. Thank you. Pleasure.